On today's episode of A Soul's Quest podcast, we're exploring the benefits of having teachers, mentors, and guides in our quest towards self-actualization. Stay tuned. Today, we're talking about the importance of teachers, mentors, and guides.
Nice.
In our quest.
Oh, yeah. Cool. That's pretty cool.
And we've had our share of teachers, mentors, and guides.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think this is one of the things that we talked about in our Soul's Quest, was like a methodology, right? In regards to the monomyth, the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. A big factor in that journey is the introduction of a guide, a mentor, in that quest for our individual selves, right? There's always someone that comes to point us in the right direction, give us special skills, tools, a mental awareness as to what things are and how things should be, and give you the mental preparation, the psychological preparation to kind of like move forward. Mm-hmm. So those individuals, they come, they go, and for a specific period of time in your life, and that's one of the things that a real good teacher, a real good mentor, a real good guide will not stick around forever. And the reason behind it is because the ultimate goal of the quest, right, is to be self-actualizing and live from your own individual impulse. So any good teacher, any good guide, any good mentor, will be a friend, but you ultimately have to open up doors and do things your own.
They serve their purpose.
They serve their purpose. Yeah.
So I want to start with, as usual, by reading a quote. This is by Carl Jung. One looks back with appreciation to the brilliant teachers, but with gratitude to those who touched our human feelings. The curriculum is so much necessary raw material, but warmth in the vital element for the growing plant and for the soul of the child.
Correct, yeah. And this is one thing that the power of those individuals, those teachers, right? Teachers have a lot of influence. Teachers, mentors, guides, those individuals have a lot of influence in the direction and the path that the young people in particular, and even as you mature and you get older, they have such an influence and such a power as to, the course a life takes. And it's a very nuanced position, and we're going to go over all the three, but those are very nuanced positions in which you truly are impacting people.
Right.
And sometimes you are doing it consciously, but most of the times you're doing it subconsciously,
yeah.
Right? It's like parents.
Like we don't know how we affect other people.
Exactly. But our actions are our behaviors. Most kids just learn really, truly, not about the words that you're saying, but what you do.
Oh, by your actions.
By your
yeah.
actions.
Yeah.
And the way that you make people feel.
Yeah.
So it's like those little nuances are like really the essence, right? And what really elevates a teacher from an average teacher or a person who just chooses a profession because it's easy to a higher status.
It's the substance in what they do and the delivery.
Exactly.
And the delivery comes both verbally and in action.
And people could sense that. It's like when it comes from a deeper place, Do
you think people sense that if they're open though only?
No. I think kids in particularly sense that. And people sense that when someone, there's a lot of people that have the right verbiage, right? But they don't have that thing that connects to one another. That sense of like really wanting, what's best, and people sense that. You could sense it. There's a certain feeling, like you go back and you start thinking about your teachers, like in, the people that came across in your life. And you start knowing, like, oh, wow, besides what this person said and taught us or did, is what this person made us feel, right? That's like the Maya Angelou quote, right? People never forget what you did or say or whatever. They always remember how the way you make them feel.
Right.
Right. It's like it's a different experience. It's a different level of experience besides the theoretical and the educational or the academic impartation of knowledge. It is the reasoning why you're imparting this knowledge and how it truly kind of like empowers a person. Always suggest to take a fucking test and try to pass the knowledge and show that you're proficient in this. You know, so it's like people feel that. People know the difference.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I remember when I was in, I don't know what grade I was in, but I had this instructor or a teacher. Her name was Mrs. Ingracia.
Okay.
And I just remember what she looked like. She had white hair, that skin that was like, I don't know, kind of whatever. But she always made me feel accepted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Always made me feel like I was a part of like the group because I was really shy and introverted. And so that she never really said anything, but the way she made me feel was a lasting impression. And so
that's
I
what
get
people
what you're
remembered.
saying. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. And I remember it vividly.
Yeah.
Like anytime I went into class, because I was so introverted, it was very, very obvious, you know, that she wanted me to be a part of the group and made me feel very comfortable. So when you're talking about how they made you feel, I get that at a young age.
At a young age, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more in detail about teachers, mentors, and guides.
Sure.
So teachers, a teacher is an individual who imparts knowledge and skills to others.
Yeah.
So teachers like in middle school, grade school, high school, college.
No, yeah. I mean, and again, it's like when we're talking about those three types of individuals, right? It's not one better than the other. It's the role that they play.
Right.
Right. Teachers are essential.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, teachers they impart instruction. You know, they provide you with the knowledge, with the skill set.
And they inspire
that you need. Well,
don't they? To some degree.
To some degree, but that's not the primary role of a teacher. It's to impart the knowledge, to make sure that you become proficient and you have all the competencies that you need, you know, to perform in a particular field, to perform a particular task or objective or something along those lines, right? Like a teacher, that's what they do. It's like, here's the knowledge, here's the information. Let us do, then you do, right? Okay, you understand it, you're good to go.
Right. They have the course learning objectives or outcomes. Exactly.
So they have a purpose as to be able, you know, they have to do that, you know. That's why to work in any society, right? And even the role of parents, you know, parents are the natural teachers because they're guiding their child into the way of the world. You know, you're teaching them how to behave in a society. You know, that's, you know, the role of the fundamental role of a parent is to be able to teach the assimilation. Culture, to an extent, does the same thing. Religions do the same thing. How to teach, how to behave, you know, how to become a part of society, how to, you know, navigate, let's say, in the road so that we could communicate and not have accidents all the times. This is the instructional aspect of life that is needed in order for us to survive, you know. But
then I would still say that there's an element of inspiration that they have to give you to be able to want to achieve these little steps of instruction, right? Because I feel like in my personal experience, like a lot of the times that I've been in class with my instructors and whatnot, some of the things that they have said have inspired me to want to achieve more instructionally. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's even parents have to inspire something in you.
Of course. There's this aspect, and I'm always hesitant to use the word inspiration, right? Personally. I'm speaking for myself, right? Because I believe that a function of a teacher, right, in this particular, referring to teachers in particular, right, is to impart the information in a way that these students are able to connect the dots as to the importance of what is being taught to how it applies into their lives, you know? So that's one thing in which knowledge in particularly doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be inspired, but it means that you know when a certain situation applies, or if you are having to buy 5 apples and you got to give 2 away, that you know that you have 3. It's like that basic information that you need, or that information that you need in order to partake a particular process, task, objective, and things of that nature. So it's always interesting to see that. But I see your point in the part of inspiration. Really good teachers are capable of inspiring people to wanting to know more, to wanting to chase more, to like get to know more about it, to be more inquisitive about a certain topic and a certain subject. Very good teachers are able to do that. Mm-hmm. To bring that desire to wanting to learn, to be lifelong learners, to make things come alive. I had a teacher in high school, Mr. Downs, and he was our U.S. history, U.S. government teacher, and he really, like, at least for me, made me truly get into like history and looking into it and looking at the different aspects of history, and then he used to say things like, history is written by the winners most of the time, and kind of like having that skepticism, but also that inquisitive look into, why really did happen, but he had that passion, and through that passion, like, it evoked a certain level of excitement to wanting to know more, at least for me, mm-hmm. And the way that he spoke, the way that he carried himself, very entertaining, very engaging, mm-hmm. Kind of like made me sit up, and it's like, wow, this is a cool class. Mm-hmm. It's just in high school, so yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had a couple teachers that have done that too, and it's, for me, because the only word that I have is that I was inspired.
Correct.
You know what I mean? I mean, even recently in school, I had to be inspired because I was, losing steam after being in school for so long. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Okay. So a mentor.
Okay.
A mentor is an experienced and knowledgeable individual who provides guidance and support to another person. Mm-hmm. They're typically older and more experienced in their field and offer their expertise and advice to help individuals grow and develop.
Yeah. This is cool, right? Because a teacher imparts you the skills, mm-hmm. right? And imparts you the knowledge, mm-hmm. and imparts you the rules, right? A mentor shows you how to use this, in a practical way, mm-hmm. right?
More life-based now, right?
Experimentally, right? Experimentally and in application. Mm-hmm. So a teacher imparts knowledge and skills and methodologies, right? Mm-hmm. A mentor shows you how to apply that,
right?
Mm-hmm. Shows you from their experience. Okay, well, you learn how to use the chop saw, right? In a setting, you learn how to use this. Now here's the opportunity to actually build something, mm-hmm. from scratch, right? Or coding, or doing all these different things, mm-hmm. right? It's like this is the interesting thing that I see all the time, right? Because companies and people, they spend a lot of time training, right? They send people to seminars, send people here, send them over there to learn these concepts, to be taught these concepts, these ideas, and everything, right? But most companies and most that training fails because there is no mentorship as to how to apply that stuff on a regular mm-hmm. basis.
Right, the practicals missing.
Yeah, in management, and I see this happening in leadership and management all the time, because we could go and we could teach, and you could learn about, principles of management, concepts of management and leadership, which is what you study, and that stuff is all great. It's like really great information. Mm-hmm. Now, the practical application of it all, mm-hmm. it's a different point of view, right? It's like you need someone to be able to guide you and mentor you as to how do you, when is the right time to use situational leadership? Mm-hmm. When is the right time to be a transactional leader, mm-hmm. right? When mm-hmm. is the right time to be able to reprimand or redirect someone, right? Or praise them? You know, how do you praise them? Do you praise them in a big way? Do you praise them in a little way? You know,
I mean, learning the theories and everything are easy, but
yes,
you know, because I had always said when I was in school, like, okay, you know, and I say it now to like people that I talk to and whatnot, is like, yeah, I'm a doctor of strategic leadership. I get it. I know the theories, but there's been situations where I've been like, I have no idea how to handle this as a leader. I don't know what to do right now. So you can know it, but how do you?
And that's what a mentor provides. Yeah. A mentor provides the framework, right? The arena to be able to say, okay, well, this is the situation, you know, and guide you and mentor you as to how do you handle
how do you navigate it. Yeah.
You know, and I've been fortunate to have like different mentors. And even now I have certain mentors, you know, the biggest mentor, teacher, mentor, guide in all my life, you know, was always the model of what everybody that I measure everybody to is Ken Mullen. You know, everything that it's Ken Mullen is a person that I always think about whenever I make a decision, whenever I'm looking into my leadership style, the way that I managed people, and the way that it was always based on what Ken did. That idea of enabling the individuals to be self-reliant, make decisions, you know. And as time went by, I realized that what he was teaching me was situational leadership, you know, in direct, support, coach, delegate, right? It's a very specific, you know, curve that you follow, you know, and so I was fortunate to have a mentor that was able to kind of like teach me that, then provide all in one, provide the mentorship as, okay, how do you handle this? How do you handle that? And it wasn't just in that aspect of how do I manage a group, but also in my personal thing, okay, how do you handle this situation with your parents? How do you handle these situations? What are the things? And it was not about giving the answers, but more about, this is from my experience. Go ahead and, if you want to, go ahead and try it. If not, you know, just know that there might be some consequences to it. You know, and that was kind of like one of the beautiful things about having that. And I have other mentors too, like Mike Sancho, Fred, and I've said this, that I'm gonna say these names before, but I'm very specific about the people that I laid in my life, because I see qualities in them that I would like to emulate, you know, and I see qualities that I particularly like, you know, and I've been around a lot of individuals, thankfully. And, you know, and some of them resonate with other people. Some of them don't resonate with me. Yeah, you
same. And I mean, personally, I don't have a mentor currently in my life. I'm very much, sounds bad, I'm alone. But I will say that there's been two women in my life. When I was young, I had a woman when I was going to church. Her name was Helen. And she was a very graceful woman and very feminine, and carried herself in a way that made me feel like, oh, I want to be that. I want to be able to get dirty, but I still want to have that feminine aspect, you know. And she was always very polite.
It just made me think of like a lady in the street with a freak in the bed. Never mind, I'm gonna edit that out. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
He edited that out. Thank God.
No, I'm not editing that out. It's just it's funny. You know? Okay. Well, go ahead.
So, yes, that would be a way to put it. So, you just threw me off. But she always, as a young woman, a young lady, you know, a child basically going through puberty and whatever. One of the things that I would always think about is how, you know, so I would sit the way she sat, and I would put my hands I would sit, you know, I went to charm school, so I learned how to sit straight, even though I'm like, but and then later in life, when I was going through, not my divorce, because I was already divorced, but through, you know, having shared custody and sort of embarking on becoming a different individual or a different person, not just a wife, but also a good mom, a good, you know, person in general, was Miss Barbara. Barbara Berry. And so she was a woman, you know, now when I reflect on her, when you say, you know, when I think about decisions and I make decisions, one of the things that I do often, won't say it's all the time, but often, is I will always say, like, I wrote down in a journal, old journal that I have, you know how they have the "What would Jesus do?" WWJ.
Yeah.
I put "What would Barbara do?"
Yes.
Because Miss Barbara was she was a woman that was full of grace, and even you knew when she was mad or she was like, nah, you're gonna do this, and she was firm and she was very like, this is what you're gonna do. But she would hold me accountable.
Correct.
And she was always celebrating my growth.
Yes.
Always celebrated me as and apart from you, apart from my kids, apart from my work and my studies, she always celebrated me as an individual. And I didn't spend as much time as I would have liked to with Miss Barbara because, she's passed and whatnot. But the time that I did spend with her, she imparted so much valuable information to me in a way that I didn't even know she was doing that until I was in situations where I'd be like, what would Miss Barbara do? Or whatever. And I just had such a deep respect for her and admiration and I would say love for her as a person.
And you know what the interesting thing about all that, right? It's like, when you're looking about this stuff and you think about a lot of this, how this stuff happens, right? How do you find a mentor? How do you, a lot of these things happen organically.
Very. I mean, it was because of Fred. We met Fred in Miami.
And then met Mom, and it's like, whoa.
And how did we even meet her? Oh, you moved her. You helped Fred move her.
Yes. Yeah. So
that's how we met her.
But it was a lot of this stuff happens organically, right? Because there is something, and now that we're going to get into the guide, right? There is something that speaks to the soul between people.
Yeah.
And this goes beyond logic, behind our analytical mind and our way that of thinking, and when you start really reflecting on a lot of things, you start really seeing things, people that play these roles, but in an organic way.
Yeah.
If you're open to it.
Yeah.
And your soul speaks to you when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Like, wow, I'm learning something from this person, even if it's from afar.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think I still refer to Miss Barbara in certain situations. Like, how would she handle this? Would she, allow this to affect her? Or this, what I mean? It's interesting. So, okay. So the next thing is, or the next type of leader, guide, whatever, is a guide. Sorry. Got thrown off there.
The next type of person.
The next type of person is a guide. Yes. Thank you. A guide is an individual who provides direction and support to another person. They help individuals to navigate the challenges and obstacles that they face on their journey, showing them the path to their destination.
Yes.
So what's the difference between a mentor and a guide then? Because they sound very similar to me.
Yes. So for me, right, this is kind of like the best way to kind of like put at it. I've had mentors in which I interacted with on a regular basis, right? But I have guides in which I have no interaction with. For instance, one of the biggest guides, and this may sound silly to people, right, is Joseph Campbell and his work in myth and his work of understanding that aspect of myself, and always going back to that. Like, okay, what is the symbolism of this? What is the meaning of this? Behind this metaphor, what's the lesson? Right? Behind what this person is saying, like seeing through the bullshit in people, where is this coming from? And internally understanding that. So that guide of seeing, like, seeing things from that point of view, the understanding the myth, the stories that we tell each other, or the stories that you see happening in people, like in your life. Everything is like a story, and seeing the lessons and the benefits that come behind it, right? Another guide, and this is interesting, very interesting, because we just watched this movie last night. We talked about it before. We just watched it last night, The Last Temptation of Christ. And Christ is a guide figure, right? Because there's a template, And I love that movie in particular because it shows the struggle of the flesh and the spirit, right? The right versus left. It shows that duality battle of your higher self, right? Versus your lower nature, your animalistic nature, and the struggle of balancing those two, and living to your higher nature. So that's a guide, right? Because the guide tells you, well, think about you're emphasizing primarily on the on money, on success, on all these things. But at the same token, and he tells you when you focus too much on that, you're not going to reach heaven.
Yeah.
And not to talk about heaven at the moment, but let's put it like this from a standpoint of what heaven and nirvana is a psychological place when you're neither affected by desires or fears, right? It's like you're living from your essence, you're living in flow, right? So that's the difference between the two. A mentor, it's there to say, okay, check this out. Look at this. You see how you're doing that? Maybe you would want to try it this way or try it that way, because it's more of an apprenticeship that a mentorship is, right?
Yeah.
A guide will point out the direction, right? And it doesn't have to be like physical. It could be somebody from the past.
I was going to say, I think somebody who also that was a mentor and because I just said it, I alluded to that. Mentor and a guide can be one person that are the same. Yeah. Because at one time they played the mentorship role, but then now they play, for example, Miss Barbara's no longer with us. But there are times when I think about how would she carry herself in this? Would she allow this dude to talk to her this way? And I think about that. It's really crazy about how, I don't know, that just made me think.
No,
like that's,
it does, because again, it's like a guide sets kind of like an example.
Yeah.
And he tells you to stay clear of this, stay clear of that. Like I think in our popular culture, I think the best examples of what we're talking about, teachers, mentors, and guides. Well, those examples is like the Star Wars characters, right? You start thinking about an Obi-Wan Kenobi, who was originally a teacher, right, and eventually became the mentor and the guide, even after transported into another realm. Yoda is like he's the archetype of what we're talking about in terms of that guide. So those are the things that you're seeing. But again, a guide provides the guiding posts on your quest. Yeah, and he tells you, watch out for those rocks or watch out for those individuals. Yeah. Right? Because from inside, right? Like, be careful with that. And that's the part when you start connecting to like your higher self, to like you start connecting at heart level, and you start listening to that aspect, then you start realizing, oh, okay, this may not be the best situation for me. So there's like that internal thing. This is the role the religions were meant to play. That's, that guide, that internal
compass.
Yeah, that's barometer. The perfect word. That is the perfect word. That internal compass that tells you you're on the right track or you're not. Right. And a lot of the times we lose that, because again, it goes beyond the guide part. We could talk about this in particular because it goes a little bit beyond just achievement and the physical nature of things, right? Because everybody knows that after you get to a certain point financially, right, you things don't change much, right? And then you get a choice either to continue just to growth for the sake of growth, right, or you're doing it for other purposes. And if you have that compass, that internal compass that guides you in which direction, that guidance from a higher self, at least is what we're talking about from the standpoint of a soul's quest. But people decide to do in your life achievement or power and all that stuff. That's all what other people decide to do. What we're talking about, it's being into that higher self to bring something different. And this is what my guides, like Joseph Campbell, Carl Sagan, Carl Jung, Alan Watts, Bob Marley is one of the biggest guides in my opinion. And people want to say, well, he's not a guide. It's like, to me, he is. It's like his music, the words, what he's saying, to me, speaks volumes. I think he's one of the greatest philosophers that ever existed, without giving. But he is an artist. I'm like a true definition of what an artist is. So I always listen to his music because it resonates with me, even though it has a religious undertone. But it's a beauty in it. And the way that he carried himself and he lived his life and so forth and so on. And you could debate back and forth. But those are the guides that I actually follow, like, and what I see as guides. And there's ideas also that serve as guides, principles that you live by.
Yeah. And the point is that these people come in, like we started the episode with, they come into our lives and they serve their purpose. And what you take from that and how you continue to live the rest of your life is what is telling, or what is
correct,
what is important, know what I mean?
And here's the final the kicker, right? This is the kicker, that eventually, as you progress through your life and you do these things, you're going to play those roles for other people.
Exactly.
Now, if you're not conscious of it, right, you might do it subconsciously. But when you become conscious of it, you start living from a different point of view. And life has a different meaning, and it has a different purpose.
Right.
It has a different zest to it.
Yeah.
If you are conscious of it.
Yeah.
And if you purposely go about your life that way.
Right. I gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
So to wrap up this episode, here are 5 tips for finding teachers, mentors, and guides. I'm reading, sorry. On your quest towards self-actualization.
Okay.
Okay. So number 1 is to be open to new experiences and opportunities, which is what we were talking about earlier, is being, I think sometimes we're not even aware that we're being open, but people come into your life and you're just like, oh, okay. And you kind of resonate with that person, or you just, I don't know, you just get along with that person. You just mesh, right?
Yeah. And you got to be open to the possibilities of what's out there, because you never know what you could learn from people. And you should always be open to be learning from people.
Is that being too philosophical when you're thinking about every single thing that somebody's talking to you about and then thinking what you can learn from it? Or is there an easy way to do that? Just
it's you could do it in 2 ways, right? You could be formal about it and say, okay, we're going to establish this relationship as a mentor, mentee, a teacher, right? Well, you could establish those formal relationships, and you set parameters and all that type of stuff, right? That's one way to do it. That's one way that I've done it,
right?
And it's worked for me. There's other ways that just happen organically, and when that happens organically, it's like you have to set kind of like the relationship boundaries as to how that goes, So
I think we both experienced that, because we both have had people in our lives where it was just like, you just come away from that going, wow, just mind blown. Yeah.
But it's also like how you setting the boundaries of what those relationships will be. There are things that are formal, right? And there are things that are informal.
But that's what I'm saying. The informal part speaks to number 1 here.
Correct.
Because you want to be able to be open. So when you go into a situation that is informal and you're just having dinner, or you're just having coffee, or just whatever, but you walk away with, oh my God, I learned something today.
Of course.
That's being open to new opportunities.
Being open to new opportunities. Correct. Yes.
So number 2, seek out individuals who inspire you.
Yes. Living or dead. I'm always like, I'm not a very, I have a hard, let me rephrase those things, right? I'm always cautious. I'm very introverted. So I could communicate. I'm very good at communicating with people and having conversations, but there's very few people that I really let inside of my world, my internal world. Very few. And it's just by choice, because I just feel more confident. I'm more comfortable with that. Right. So, but I have seeked out individuals for assistance, for help. I have a life coach right now, a person that is helping me out tremendously. But you seek out those individuals that again, it's like you look at them and say, wow, I like that person. I like what they have to say. I like how they speak. I like what they're saying. Person. I want to learn more from that person. Yeah. And I've seeked out, and I seek that out. But you should look out for someone that's really in your field, in whatever it is that you're deciding to do. That has that. Now you're never able to know 100% everything about an individual, but there are aspects of them that you want to know more about, and
Yeah.
that's the opportunity to do so.
Yeah. So that's good because you leads right into number 3, which is look for those who have been where you are now.
Yes.
Yeah. So people who've been down the same or similar paths or experienced similar things that you have is what you're talking about.
It's like I never asked a relationship about from single people. Like
That's a saying.
I'm like, why would I do
marriage
that?
advice from a single person?
I'm like, it's just to me that's kind of silly because I never done it, you
Yeah.
know. And I also, you know, when I'm observant of relationships, you know, and I see kind of like certain things, like, I'm not gonna ask that. I used to have relationship advice from Miss Barbara.
Oh yeah,
you know, because she was married. I mean, you know, so it's like, but
we both did.
Yeah, there's very few people that I will ask about my relationship advice, my relationship. I don't really do that because they don't understand the scope of what it is to be with someone for a long period of time, the ins and outs of it, the sacrifices.
I think it's interesting that you're saying that because it's now at one point we asked those questions of certain people, right? Like Miss Barbara, you know, my relationship with you, we weren't married when I first met her. And then now 21 years later this year, like, we're the ones that are playing that role of
to other people.
Yeah. Because I've had people all the time, they'll say, how do you guys do it? You know, or they see us on camera and they think, wow, you guys are so, you know, dynamic and just great on camera. And the truth is that we're good off of camera too. We're just more obviously
a little bit more trying to be a little bit more professional or a little bit more trying.
I
say that
not really
loosely.
Very loosely after what you said today. You're not editing out.
But you know, but then there's something else too when it comes to that is the fact that it's like me personally, I'm very picky, right? When it comes to people, because there's a lot of people that give a lot of lip service.
Oh yeah,
right. But they don't live it. And I'm like, and I've learned that in the past because there's people that you know they talk the great talk, but when it comes to it, when you see their actions and you see their behaviors, they might be successful and they might have all that, but when you start peeling in the layers and looking underneath the rug, then you start seeing all the dirt, and it's like, so you gotta be cautious too.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Number 4, join groups and organizations related to your interests.
Yeah. Now, this is for an extrovert. I always have a hard time with this one because I'm just.
We're both very introverted, so it's hard for us.
Yeah,
to do this,
and then again, it's like,
but it's a good thing. It's something. If you're able to do it, I think it's a great idea.
And I do it. I mean, I do it. And what I mean by introversion really is that it just takes me a long time to recoup afterwards, but I could definitely do it. You know,
I think I'm on the other side. It's hard for me to get into these groups.
So it's like but those things are very helpful because again, when you are in a group setting, you are gaining knowledge, you're gaining information, you're gaining perspectives, right?
And
more
you're
than
going
anything,
back to number 1, being open to new, open and having new experiences.
Exactly, and you're becoming open to new experiences. So, but you have to find your level of comfort when it comes to all those different things, right? You have to find your level of comfort. How much you're willing to share, you know? Because I've been in situations in which I felt like, well, I got to do this, so I'm going to share everything, and that's not appropriate. It's not appropriate because if you're too open sometimes, like you got to mitigate your level of vulnerability, how vulnerable you're willing to be in under certain situations. Yeah. You know, so
there's a time to share certain things. There's a time to
precisely
share. You got to have that balance. I got you. Okay. And finally, number 5, ask for recommendations. What do you mean by that?
Well, ask people about, hey, you know, I'm looking for someone that could help me with this.
Okay, so speaking of vulnerability again.
Yeah, speaking of vulnerability, somebody that you trust, you know, somebody that you know that you're feeling comfortable with, exchanging stuff.
So you have to trust the person that you're asking for recommendations from?
Yeah, you have to trust the person. You also have to ask, you have to allow yourself to put yourself out there if you want to be able to transform a certain aspect, you know. So you could go out and learn something, right? There's so much information out there, so many great teachers online, in traditional settings. There's so much information out there. So much. Yeah. And you know, and a lot of the times the struggle that we face is the organization of that information. And that's kind of like what mentors and guides come in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because the information is out there and most of it is free, right? It's how do you organize that information so that it makes sense to you and you could actually begin to evolve and transform in your life. You know, that's when the roles is. That's when when you might actually need that extra assistance to be able to help you formulate, to clarify, you know, your goals, your values, your life's mission, what you would like your life's purpose to be. You know, those are what those individuals are able to help you accomplish and clarify. So as you continue on your quest.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Comment below with your thoughts and additional ideas, and remember to stay connected by sharing and subscribing.